Welcome to the ITIL for Deployment Management Practice Official Sample Paper 1 recording from One World Training. We would like to acknowledge PeopleCert and AXELOS as we have used their logos and official publications in this material. There are two sample papers from PeopleCert that are official question papers. These are available to you in your e-learning access, including the answers or the rationale as well. We also have online simulated mock exams for these two sample papers also. And note that we have a separate recording for the sample paper too. About One World Training. We are a global training, business simulation, and training company having offices in the USA, the UK, the Netherlands, India, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, South Africa, and many other countries globally. We provide training in IT, business management, project management, ISO standards, GDPR, and many other subjects for individuals and organizations. One World Training delivers courses in 5 different ways. 1, public classrooms. 2, online, that is virtual from home or work. 3, self-paced e-learning. 4, a mix of self-paced e-learning along with support when you need. And 5, at the user's location on-site for private and government organizations. One World Training is an authorized training center and endorsed by leading global professional bodies. So you can see some of those logos on this slide, along with the courses that we offer, such as not only ITIL courses, but also Prince2, Prince2 Agile, Agile Shift, the Service Desk Institute courses, MSP, which is Managing Successful Programs, PeopleCert, Dev Skills, DevOps, Scrum, Lean, Lean IT, and many other courses, PMI courses, Exim courses, etc. About the deployment management practice exam as well as the real exam, there will be 30 minutes allocated for this as well as the real exam. There will be 20 questions to be attempted. Each question is worth 1 mark, no negative marking. There is only 1 correct answer per question, and you need to answer at least 13 questions correctly to pass the exam. And all questions are multiple choice. I will take you through all these 20 questions, and I will read out the question, and I will pause momentarily for you to think on the answer or reflect on the answer before I reveal and explain the answer. In some cases, I may also guide you through the practice guide in the ebook format or through my bookshelf app. Note that there is a separate recording available for you to understand how to access your practice guide ebook. There are 2 ways to access it. 1, through your PeopleCert account, for which you need to be online, and 2, through the bookshelf app. And that recording will explain how you can do this. And that recording also explains how you can book your exam. Not only book your exam, but also access your ebook for the practice guide using the same exam voucher. The first question, number 1. Which of the following is typically considered to be out of scope of the deployment management? A, adding new software licenses to the staging environment. B, removing outdated business requirements from live documents. C, removing network hubs in the testing environment. Or D, adding configuration files to the testing environment. So, hope you got the correct one. Let's go through them one by one. The first one is about adding software licenses, which is okay within the scope of the practice, because the practice is applied to digital and physical IT components, including software, hardware, documentation, licenses, and data as controlled by the organization. Therefore, A is in scope, C is in scope, and D also is in scope, whereas B, the second one, removing outdated business requirements from live documents, is not in scope, because it's about modifying a documentation. It is about changing a documentation, so which is not in line with the deployment management practice purpose. So just one thing here to be cautious about B, that documents can be added or removed to a certain environment, removed from a certain environment, that is, but removing outdated requirements from a document, which is modifying a document, which is an editing process, so that is not part of the deployment management. Number two, why should an organization consider using deployment models? A, to save time and avoid the need for reinventing of processes for managing similar type of deployments. B, to save time and avoid the need for choosing between different methods for service components of different sizes. C, to be able to exclude the aspect of user preferences from deployment planning. Or D, to be able to use a unique approach to the planning of each deployment. If you recollect the definition of deployment model, you will be able to answer this. And let me give it to you here. A deployment model is a repeatable approach to the management of particular types of deployments. Yes, therefore A would be correct, the first one, to save time and avoid the need for reinventing of processes for managing similar type of deployments. Now, option D is close, to be able to use a unique approach to the planning of each deployment. Now, we don't want to have a unique approach for each deployment. We need some commonalities between various deployments, maybe for specific deployment type or category, and therefore we need a deployment model. Otherwise, we would have hundreds of deployments approaches for 100 different deployments. We don't want that, but rather we would have a few types of deployment models based on different types of deployments. And option B is actually incorrect because, in fact, the deployment model should cater for service components of different sizes. And deployment model should also cater for user preferences as mentioned in C, whereas B and C are actually the opposite of what is necessary or needed. We move on to question number 3. What should the organization keep in mind when assessing the effectiveness of deployments? A, the effectiveness of deployments is assessed by the deployment management practice and does not have an impact on the organization. B, the effectiveness of deployments may have a significant impact on the effectiveness of releases. C, the organizations and people dimension of service management does not have an impact on the effectiveness of deployments. D, the partners and suppliers dimension of service management does not have a significant impact on the effectiveness of deployments. One clue here for you would be that all the 4 dimensions of service management are relevant for deployment management for its efficiency, effectiveness. And therefore, option D and C both can be ruled out because those 2 dimensions definitely have an impact. In fact, ensuring effective deployment requires orchestrating resources in all the 4 dimensions of service management. Option A, the effectiveness being assessed by the deployment management practice and does not have an impact on the organization. That is strange because the impact on the organization can be significant. For example, any unauthorized change caused by manual, process, or technology errors can negatively impact the objectives and outcomes of the changes and releases, often significantly impacting the organization. I did not mention the word deployment, but deployments come within the scope of the change enablement practice. Meaning the change enablement triggers the deployment management, release management, and other practices. So option B is the good one. The effectiveness of deployments may have a significant impact on the effectiveness of releases. And that is true because the effectiveness of changes, releases, and deployments are linked together. And because the success of service moves depends on the effective and efficient management of changes and releases, which in turn depends on timely deployments that align with the requirements and objectives. Alignment of the deployment to the change and release requirements, as well as key aspects such as schedule and cost, must be managed effectively. Question 4. How does continuous integration help to achieve the objectives of deployment management? A, by ensuring that updates to products and services can be made available to users at any time. B, by ensuring that updates to products and services are automated and frequent. C, by using tooling and practices for building and testing the software that is being developed. or D, by involving users in the development and deployment of the code that is being developed? For this, you need to differentiate between continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. The question is about continuous integration, and option A is about continuous delivery. Means built software can be released to production at any time if needed. Option B, because in this case, we have continuous deployment because changes go through the pipeline and are automatically put into production environment, enable multiple production deployments per day. And the continuous deployment relies on continuous delivery. Option C is the correct one because continuous integration is about integrating, building, and testing code within the software development environment. And it includes specific skills, processes, procedures, automation tools, and agreements with third parties. C is correct. Option D, this involvement of users in the development and deployment of the code that is being developed, this does not align with the description of continuous integration, and actually users are not involved in the development and deployment of code in the DevOps or Agile environments. We move on to the next question. Question number 5. An organization is aiming to improve the coordination of practices involved in the implementation of improvement of products and services. Which practice should the organization use to select the appropriate deployment model during change planning? Note this question carefully. It is about change planning, though it involves selection of the appropriate deployment model. And the options are A, change enablement, B, deployment management, C, release management, or D, continual improvement. So here it is important to acknowledge that the change enablement practice ensures the correct selection of a relevant deployment model. And whereas also the scheduling of the deployment phase of the change implementation and also the acceptance of the deployment. Whereas the deployment management practice ensures that the valid deployment models are available and correctly executed when required according to the change plan and change schedule. Therefore, option A would be correct and not B. And option C, release management, that is not responsible for selecting the correct deployment models. And similarly, option D, continual improvement, also is not responsible for selecting the correct deployment models. Next, question number 6. An organization wants to manage its deployments with the help of multiple teams, each of which has a deployment manager. These teams should be able to make rapid updates to the live environment for the components that they manage. What should the organization use to achieve this goal? A, continuous integration, B, practice-based team structure, C, product or service-based team structure, or D, continuous deployment. This is an organization structure question. Here, we need to recollect that product or service-based teams can deploy quickly. And so that is option C. And option D, continuous deployment, is automated and not just the rapid updates. So the question is, the team should be able to make rapid updates to the live environment for components that they manage. So C seems to be the correct one, but let's check it anyway. So the deployment managers and practitioners belong to teams, and each of which is focused on a particular product or technology defined scope, such as a single product, service platform, or a set of features. That is in option C, those are kind of teams. And this kind of deployment team is empowered to build and deliver value quickly by moving new or changed hardware, software, documentation, processes, or any other component within the team's responsibility to live environments. And it may also be involved in deploying components to other environments for testing or staging. The product-based teams are cross-functional teams and perform all or most activities throughout the product life cycle, from planning, development, deployment, release to operations. So C is correct. Option D, continuous deployment, means changes go through the pipeline and automatically put into production, enabling multiple production deployments per day. And with multiple teams responsible for different components, this would require adoption of a product or service-based team structure. Option 1, continuous integration, that is the integration, building and testing of code within the software development environment. This will not help the teams to improve the deployment to the live environment. Secondly, we have the practice-based team structure. It refers to a setup where the dedicated team is responsible for deployments. Many organizations adopt organization structures based on the practices or group of practices. For example, there could be a change enablement practice team, release management practice team, deployment management practice team, or testing, service validation and testing practice team. And sometimes those could be combined into a single service transition team or something similar. In this case, the organization will have dedicated resources shared across many products, services, and technology domains. And these sometimes evolve to centers of excellence, which may become service providers focused on a particular area of service management. And in this case, the most important requirement that the team is able to effectively participate in the end-to-end value streams of the service provider and understand all products, services, and technologies in their scope well enough. And because the question indicates each team has a deployment manager who would like to make rapid updates to the live environment, therefore, option C would be the correct one.